Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Sports Scene on WLCS TV 20 here in the city of Lorain. I'm Tim Alcorn with WEOL Radio, and for the first time this year, we've moved Sports Scene into the studio. And we're glad to have with us for our first program, studio-wise, a guy who has been on Sports Scene many, many times before. He's the voice of the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Cleveland Rockers, Joe Tait. And, of course, the Cleveland Cavs are getting ready to start yet another basketball campaign. And Joe, once again, will be calling all the games via the radio airwaves. You can hear Joe on AM 930 WEOL. But as we were kidding beforehand, Joe, for your 973rd time on Sports Scene, we welcome you back to the program. New set. Here we sit high atop Gund Arena to do this one.
And if you believe that, folks, I am impressed, though. They have really spiffied things up over here. And, the backdrop looks nice.
Joe Bach. See, at the end of every program, Joe says, make sure you give me some credit. Please give me some credit. He's a big publicity hound. So we'll just give him some credit at the beginning of this program. Joe Bach, the guy in charge here at WLCS, doing a marvelous job.
There'll never be another Bob, but Joe's going to come as close as humanly possible.
Indeed he will. Well, let's talk about Cavs basketball. 2001-2002 season about to get underway. I know each and every year when we do our Cavs preview show, you sit here and say the Cavs are going to win the NBA championship. Now, John Lucas has already come out and said that's not going to happen. So what's your expectations with this ball club?
Yeah, John not only doesn't have us winning the NBA championship, he doesn't even have us making the playoffs. And he's the coach. That's like the bus driver climbing on Greyhound, turning back to the passengers and saying, well, we're going to start this trip, but we're not going to get where we want to go. And that's really possibly not a good example, because I think John Lucas, as much, if not more so than anybody, wants to go as far as he can go into the playoffs, win the title. But, we have had to take some steps backwards and sideways to kind of restructure the ball club. And I do like the people they have this year. It's a good bunch to travel with, and I think there's a work ethic there that'll be good. Obviously, it could be a lot better with a healthy Tyrone Hill and a healthy Zydrunas Ilgauskas, but we're going to have to wait a while for both those fellas, so pretty much it's going to be the guys that did it during the exhibition season. Granted, they went 1-5 and were outscored like, 15 points a game. We picked up a couple of guys, Ricky Davis and a young man named Skinner he stopped a lot of places. He started with the Clippers, he went to the Bulls, he went to the Raptors, and now he's with us. So, he said he's always wanted a real chance to play. Well, I think he's going to get it this year with the Cavaliers. It's the kind of a ball club that if you come to it with the typical TV mentality of do it now or I'm not interested, then you won't be interested. But I think with the team, I think it's safe to say they'll try hard, they'll be competitive. I think too, as the season progresses, especially if we get Tyrone Hill and Zydrunas Ilgauskas back, we'll start to win more as the season progresses. And then you get into the dog days of January and February, when a lot of teams realize they don't have a chance to make the playoffs and they start to dog it. And then you get a chance to pick up some wins and move up on some people. So I guess John turned it around this year. He started off by saying we're not going to make the playoffs, but then again the team could win some games and suddenly find itself in a chance to make the playoffs. So optimistic? I'm always optimistic. Do I think they'll win the NBA title this year? No, I think for the first time in 150 million broadcasts here, I will tell you, no, they will not win the NBA title this year.
Well, let's talk about some of the changes. You mentioned personnel, and before we get to those, at the top, the head guy, John Lucas, steps in now to replace Randy Whitman. What are your overall thoughts on John Lucas? You've had a preseason to at least get to know him per se. How do you feel he'll do as the new head coach?
As a broadcaster, I am delighted because Randy used to just come stand in front of me, and I had probably the best view of his backside ever since the doctor brought him into the world. But Lucas moves around. I mean, he'll be in front of you, but then 2 seconds later, he'll be 20 feet down the line. So he does not pose a real problem seeing the game that Randy did. But I like John. Very dynamic guy. probably one of the most dynamic people we have ever had in the Cavs coaching head spot. So he likes to keep things loose. He likes to keep the team guessing. And I remember many years ago when Bill Fitch finally departed after 9 seasons, he said, I knew I had to leave because I couldn't fool them anymore. They knew what was going to happen before I could even make it happen, and therefore it was time to go. And the team this year will not, I am sure, be able to figure out John at any point of the season just because he is really an unpredictable guy.
A boundless amount of energy. It just seems as though he's constantly on the go, and yet I'm sure he has some sort of system or philosophy that he's trying to get this team to buy into. What do you think that system is going to be, or that philosophy will be?
I have no idea. He has not included the play-by-play announcer in his game plan, and I'm just as glad, because back in the old days when I used to spend most of my waking moments with Bill Fitch, I got to know what the game plan was inside and out, and then you began anticipating what was supposed to happen. And oftentimes it didn't happen, and therefore you found yourself, getting ahead of yourself, and because you thought you knew what was going to happen, and then it didn't come to pass. So I'm just as happy not knowing myself. It'll be a surprise to me and to you and to everybody else.
The fact that he's a former player, has been around the league with several teams, does that help? They call that a player's coach, that he knows what it takes to be an NBA player, he knows the rigors of the schedule and so forth. Do you feel that's true, that he'll be, quote-unquote, a player's coach, however you define that?
Tim, don't ever call him a player's coach.
He got him up at 6 in the morning.
You'll get 5 minutes of why he hates that term, player's coach. He said it's been that way over the years, that if you played in this league, you were a player's coach. If you didn't play in this league, you were an X and O's guy. But who says that a player can't X and O, and a guy who never played be a player's coach? He said those are titles that just don't hold up over the long haul. So I think John knows how to play the game, and I think he knows how to impart it to other people. It's just a question of getting the right people into the system where they can win more than they lose.
He had a great deal of success in San Antonio, then basically got the whole ball of wax in Philadelphia as far as control was concerned, and things went askew there. Is this really his last opportunity to make a go of it as a head basketball coach in the NBA?
Oh, I don't know about that, but the thing in Philadelphia was that, as you say, they gave him the whole 9 yards. John throws himself into, I'll bet you when he takes a shower in the morning, suds are coming over the top of the glass, because he does everything just as vigorously and as hard as he possibly can.
Full bore.
Yeah, you give the guy GM, director of player personnel, and head coach, he's going to tear himself to pieces. And that's exactly what happened to him in Philadelphia. Now he's just got one job to worry about, being head coach, and he just throw himself into that and let other people take care of the rest. Plus, he was not gifted with the most talent in Philadelphia as well. But he has proven at San Antonio that he can coach and win in this league if you have the people.
Joe, you mentioned earlier Bill Fitch, of course, former Cavaliers coach, and this is a guy that knows John Lucas pretty well. Luke had an opportunity to play for him. I read a book that John wrote about his well-known battle with drug addiction and so forth, and he credited Bill Fitch for saving his life, in essence. If you could, I don't know how much you know of that story, but from what you know, talk a little bit about the relationship between John and a very good friend of yours and Bill Fitch.
I think you can boil it down to the fact that Bill realized what John's problem was. A lot of people probably just would have let it slide and figured, well, if we can get some games out of Lucas, fine, and he can worry about himself. But Bill went beyond that and actually kicked him off the team, and almost grabbed him by the ear and took him in to get treatment, and then stayed with him as far as the support throughout that whole thing. And Lucas will tell you that Fitch saved his life, and Bill is, he doesn't talk about it very much, but I know he's very pleased with the way Lucas has come back from that low water mark.
Certainly, in reading the book that John wrote, he's put life in perspective. He doesn't think basketball's not an important job in the realm of things and what he does for professional living. It is, but obviously he also realizes what's the most important thing in life, and that's become his family and the fact that he's walking the face of the earth. Do you sense that as you get around, John, that here's a guy that really values that basically he's here each and every day where, as you said, he came that close to going over the edge?
Well, I think that may be part of the dynamic, but when John is around the basketball and around the arena and around the players and around guys like me, he is strictly basketball numero uno. But I think he probably knows how to take himself away from it when he gets away from it, and that's very important if you're going to survive in this league, and that is to know how to get away from the game periodically and pay attention to the other important things in your life.
Well, as I mentioned at the top, some new people on this team. It seems as though that's been the way things have gone the past couple of years. There really hasn't been one core group of players that have made their way through. I want to talk about some of the newcomers. First of all, Matt Harpring, along with Tractor Trailer and Cedric Henderson, went to Philadelphia for a guy you mentioned earlier, Tyrone Hill, who's been in this city before as a Cav, and also Jermaine Jones. People know about Hill. Talk a little bit about Jermaine Jones and what you feel he may offer to this basketball team.
Jermaine Jones could change the light bulbs at Gund Arena without benefit of the ladder. He can jump. He is very athletic, very acrobatic. He's going to be fun to watch, and has already been fun to watch. In the exhibition games, he had a problem, but in fact, I don't even remember what it was now, but he's back, and he's played in the last exhibition game and looked very, very good. So, yeah, he's gonna be fun to watch because he will give you some athletic slam dunks and, you know, tough rebounds, block some shots, and do some of the things that bring the oohs and the ahs from the fans.
What's going on with Tyrone Hill? Just basic back spasms, and anybody that's ever had those know that they're painful, but it seems to be a lingering, ongoing thing. What's the prognosis with Tyrone?
Don't know.
You've battled a back before.
Yes, I have, and it's no fun, that's for sure. And I don't know. They can't find anything structurally wrong with his back, but and when your back hurts, you have a hurt big time. And it appears that Tyrone Hill is hurting. I was glad to see Tyrone showed up the other night at the Meet the Cavs get together downtown because, you know, if he had stayed away, you'd begin to wonder what the heck's going on. But he did. He showed up and participated. So I think it's just a matter of time till they can get that back calmed down and he can get back into it. You know, he's getting up there in years a little bit himself.
Now, you kind of led into something there because there are those theories floating around that he didn't want to go from the Eastern Conference champion to a club that's struggling and rebuilding with the Cavs. This is all kind of a ploy. He doesn't really want to play here. Do you buy into any of that?
Well, I'll guarantee you he didn't want to come from Philadelphia to Cleveland. I mean, you know, from a team that has a chance to maybe win it all, or to a team that's going to have a long, hard grind to get to a point where they have a shot at it. So there's nothing made up or nothing fanciful or no mysterious story on that. You know, people think, well, he's shirking and he didn't want to do camp. Well, I don't know. I haven't seen anything like Tyrone Hill does not impress me as a malingerer. So, you know, but unless you were wearing his back, you don't know how much he hurts. And I do think he likes to play the game. So, and he didn't appear to show any animosity once he got down to the arena. I think when he feels he can play, he'll play.
I want to talk about another guy in the front line that's new to this organization, the #1 draft pick right out of high school, Dejanya. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
No, you're not.
You go ahead. You say it every night.
Forget the D-E.
Zanya.
Why it's there, I don't even know, but it's Sagana. Sagana Jop.
So, you know, as I listen night after night on WEOL, Joe, by the end of the year, I'll get it right. Zagana Jop.
Well, I mean, you know.
But anyway.
Feel happy. It'll take Wally at least 2 years to get it right.
I just had Ilgauskas and Potapenko down, and now we're with Jop. But
Potapenko. You never did get that one right.
But anyway, Jop, your thoughts on him? We didn't see him during the preseason.
Neither did I, except he did make a couple of flights with us. And so...
A real project, obviously.
Absolutely. I just point to a guy named Jermaine O'Neal playing extremely well in Indiana, and remember what he looked like for the first 3 years in Portland. When they just finally gave up, they said, oh, this guy will never amount to anything. He goes to Indiana, blossoms, and is now a really outstanding basketball player. They feel that Jop will be the same. Great guy. I mean, you can't help but like this fella. Personally, he's only played basketball for 5 or 6 years. He was a soccer player in Senegal. I don't know, not a lot of 7-foot soccer players running around, but he, he works hard. I think he takes instruction well. He did go back to Senegal to play on the national team, and they played on concrete covered by a linoleum, as I understand it, and that led to that foot problem that he had. But they finally got that relaxed, and he's practicing again. But if Sagana leads us to the promised land, it'll be like 5 years away.
You're probably not going to see much of him even during this first year. I mean, as far as playing critical minutes or a big role on this basketball team, Lucas will kind of pick and choose where this young man sees some action.
Yeah, if the margin one way or another is 15 points or more, you may well see Sagana briefly. But they'll bring him along very, very slowly.
Joe, just on a general question, the overall trend of these first-round picks right out of high school, it seems to bother a lot of fans. It's hurting the college game. Do you see the NBA doing anything about this? Is there anything that they can do? If a kid wants to come out of high school and play pro ball, what's to stop them? But it seems as though right now in the league, you've got a bunch of 18, 19-year-old kids running around out there playing at the pro level.
Can you spell lawsuit?
Well...
because that's what would happen if you suddenly came up with a rule that they could not apply for the draft. And let's say all of a sudden no high schoolers were drafted in a particular year, then you'd have collusion.
Right.
And you'd have another lawsuit. I mean, there are, 50,000 lawyers who get off the welfare line in time for suits like this. So it's just, it's something, they've created a monster, and they're going to have to live with it. Once in a while you get a high school kid comes along and plays extremely well, but they're rare. And the big thing of it is all of that maturation. I mean, you're taken right out of a high school class and thrown into an adult situation where basically you're responsible for your life. Nobody is going to babysit you. Nobody is going to tutor you. Nobody, unless you got a buddy on the team who kind of takes you under his wing and kind of shows you the do's and don'ts. You're on your own, and you can grow up tough that way. And you can also, never measure up to what you might have been had you stayed in college.
Before we go to the backcourt, a couple of more front court guys I want to ask you about. A college choice or a draft pick that came out of college, Chris Mim. From what I read, John Lucas wants to try him more as a power forward rather than a center. He feels as though Mim will play better facing the basket. Your thoughts on Chris? I thought he had a pretty good rookie year as far as developmentally.
And he played much better in the preseason this year. And he will play primarily at the 4 spot or the strong forward spot, and it seems to be something that suits him. And he has already shown that he has taken some very good strides forward, so I think Chris Mim will be a much better basketball player this year, and he wasn't bad as a rookie.
How about Lamont Murray? There's the other front court guy I want to ask you about. If ever this team had an enigma, just a riddle within a puzzle that you can't figure out, it's Lamont Murray. Is John Lucas the guy that finally gets Lamont Murray to perhaps play to his fullest potential?
Hope so.
I mean, the guy can just flat out shoot the basketball when he seems to be in the mood to shoot the basketball.
Well, people like that away from basketball. Lamont just happens to be playing basketball, and in the long run, it's going to have to come from Lamont. And I've never had any problems with him at all, but he is strange from the standpoint of, on one night he'll show you everything under the sun, and you'll say, my, oh my, what talent. And the next night, you figure they ought to just hold a basketball in front of him and say, okay, let's start from square one. This is a basketball, because he doesn't appear to know the game at all. Why? Oh, I've heard a lot of theories, and none of which need to be talked about here, but enigma is a very good word.
Thank you. I didn't get Sagana right, but I pulled out Enigma. I want to move to the backcourt because that's an area that I'm pretty excited about with John Lucas being the head coach. Luke in his prime was one of the premier point guards in the NBA, and I think Andre Miller has the capability of being a great point guard. He's already an all-star caliber guard, but I think with Luke as a head coach, Miller can really elevate his game another level or two. I know you think very highly of Andre Miller.
Oh yeah, Andre Miller is going to be a very good basketball player for a long, long time in this league if he stays healthy. There are people who say, well, he's too soft-spoken, you know, he's not a take-charge guy. But there are other people on the team that can be take-charge guys, and Andre Miller distributes the ball well. I think he has to pick up his outside shot better so that on given occasions when the options are not available, he has a pretty good chance of stroking it himself. But Andre works hard and he's very smart, so I think it's nothing but you know, good things for Andre.
It's the two guard spots that seems to have a lot of question marks. Who do you see putting the ball in the basket from the two-hole?
Well, Wesley Person had elbow surgery last year, and he likes John Lucas a lot. That's a real good 1-2 punch. And in the preseason, Wesley got a chance to start and had a couple of really big games and a couple of more that, although maybe not monster games, they were good games from him offensively. And so Wesley probably will have the two-guard spot until somebody takes it away from him if they can.
Brian Stith?
Maybe.
Trepanier?
Maybe.
Did I pronounce that correct?
Trepanier, yeah. But he's a rookie, so it'll take some time, although I like Trepanier's game. I think he's very athletic and moves around well. So, you know, Wes's big problem is, you know, he'd have trouble guarding this chair. But then again, he's not alone in the league on that. There are a lot of people that don't play much defense and get along pretty well.
So overall, where do you feel this team can finish?
They will finish the 82 games. Yes.
That's guaranteed. Can they?
Nothing's guaranteed, but I think they've got a heck of a shot at finishing 82 games.
Maybe 500. Obviously, a lot depends on.
Right? Yeah. If Z and Hill come back, they stay healthy. Yeah, we got a shot at a 50-50 year in the playoffs. If they don't, it'll be a struggle. But at least, whereas last year's struggle was just despair personified, and it was hard to watch. This year, at least, I think you're going to see guys trying hard and putting forth an effort, and that'll be an improvement unto itself, regardless of what the one-loss record is.
We've only got a few minutes left. Just your overall thoughts on the league. L.A. with a three-peat, unless somebody has a real big year and can find a way to beat them?
Well, I think L.A. is probably the team to beat again this year. There'll be some contenders and pretenders. Of course, the league has focused the big spotlight on Michael Jordan. Having talked to people who have seen him play, all you ever see on ESPN are the good things. There are a lot of bad things they don't show you, too, that as those of us watching and sitting here who know, as age creeps up, you know, things start to slide a bit. And they say Michael does show some advancing years in what he does. The one thing Michael's got going for him is he's smarter than about 75 to 80% of the people he plays against. And so his wile and guile will help him. Plus, any referee that fouls out Michael Jordan this year, regardless of how bad he is, will find themselves in Sioux Falls, South Dakota the next night.
There's a legendary high school coach in our area, Bob Walsh. And Bob Walsh always wears a shirt that says, "Age and treachery will beat youth and exuberance every time." Maybe that's the story with Michael.
I think Bob's got something there, and I think you lay it right at Michael's doorstep. I think Michael would agree.
Now, you and I are one to talk, but as I watch Michael on ESPN, looks like he's got a little added girth there as well, Joe.
He'd better. They're going to pound on him. You know, they're going to pound on him a little bit this year. He will be tested, and he won't be able to play as many minutes. And the grind of the year will take its toll. I think during the course of the year he will suffer some injuries that will force him to be sidelined. And of course, all the teams in the league pray that it won't be on the night he's supposed to be at their house, because he sold out every Washington game around the league this year, home and road, and I think David Stern is driving him to and from practice.
So the bean counters can't all be disappointed that Mr.
Oh,
Jordan's
no,
made
bean
his
counters
return.
like Michael, because right now, Michael and the Lakers are about the only two things that really draw people in this league.
Well, we'll see what happens with the Cavs. Joe, as always, a half hour with you on Sports Scene just flies right by. But before we go, make sure you tell the folks about Joe Bach. What a job Joe Bach does.
Joe really impressed me here tonight. Man doesn't have a lot of savoir-faire, and he's going to have to look that up. But he is quick. There are things happen technically in this show tonight you'll never know that impressed me about Joe. You know, hey, there's only one Bob, but Joe has got a shot to carve out his own niche.
There you go.
In this business.
See, he always begs me for the plug. Now it's just come from the best there is in the business.
Bob didn't care.
Always good to have you on the show, Joe.
Thank you.
Do appreciate it. Our guest this week on Sports Scene has been the voice of the Rockers and the Cavs. Yes, savoir-faire. I'll remember that one. Joe Tait. And again, we thank him for appearing here on Sports Scene. You'll catch all the games on AM 930 WEOL as the Cavs swing into action for the 2001 and 2002 campaign. For Joe Bach, Joe Tait, I'm Tim Alcorn. We'll talk to you again next week on Sports Scene. Thanks much for watching. So long, everybody.
This has been a production of Lorain City Schools TV 20 WLCS.